All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get rolling here. So, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining us today for our webinar, Advice for Alumni, Discover France. My name is Matt Galizia, and I'm the Director of Enrollment Management here at ISA. And I actually am an ISA France alum myself. I studied abroad with ISA Paris many, many years ago. I don't want to give the exact year because it'll date me a little bit. But loved my experience in Paris so much that I wanted to make it my career, helping other students study abroad. So have that alumni perspective as well. And today I will be joined by a few of our amazing alumni from our France programs to share more with you about things that you should know before studying abroad in France. Also with us today, you'll see in the chat, we have Shelly, who's our Director for Alumni Relations. And she is also an ISA France alum. We actually have quite a few of those here at the company for some reason. France really cranked out some great alumni that became employees here at the company. She'll be monitoring the chat and she'll be dropping in helpful links along the way as we go. Feel free to put any questions that you might have right into the chat as they come to you. And she'll kind of be monitoring that and helping out with that. Feel free to drop them in anytime. And then before we speak with the rest of our alumni here, we're going to give you kind of a quick snapshot of all that France has to offer. All right. Oh my gosh, that first photo is from me. So the first thing that we love about France is the cuisine, right? It's definitely what we tend to think about when we hear about France or Paris, is just them being known globally as one of the best countries in the world for food. French people, they see food as a form of daily pleasure. There's no guilt attached to enjoying a flavorful dish. In fact, they love their carbs, but for some reason, it works. You're walking around a lot, right? You're very active while you're abroad, so can kind of balance each other out there. But mealtime is a very sacred time in France. It's a way to bring everybody together. Meals usually take quite a long time. Really, the longer the better. I've had some meals, some dinners that go like 2 or 3 hours, something like that. Um, you'll also get to see quite quickly that every city and every region has their own different traditions when it comes to what to eat, how to cook certain dishes, and even when you eat. And if you love food, you're going to love France. That one's a given. The second thing that we really love about France is the culture. So, French culture traces its roots back to the ancient world, and it has influenced art, fashion, and food around the world. Whether you're visiting a famous site or you're just walking around the streets, even the architecture is really, really amazing. I think our alumni can attest to, just walking around a random neighborhood in France or in Paris, you're going to see some of the most gorgeous architecture you've ever seen. It's kind of unbelievable that it's just at every turn in the city. Um, and Paris is also home to many museums, many of which are free of charge, especially for students or anybody under the age of 26. So definitely a big perk there. So they have things like the Louvre, the Eiffel Tower, Versailles, some really big landmarks there. And France's art and architecture really take your breath away, no matter where you're visiting. The third point here is fashion. So France is considered to be a leader in creativity and innovation, especially when it comes to fashion. You're never going to see a French person like going to the grocery store in their Lululemons like we do here or their athleisure. So they take fashion quite seriously there. Um, the country is home to iconic brands like Yves Saint Laurent, Givenchy, Dior, Hermes, things like that. And so when you go to France, be sure to dress to impress while you're there. So it doesn't necessarily mean wearing like formal attire, which they really don't do that frequently out in Paris, but they definitely put like a nice outfit together whenever they leave the house. And you'll really get to see the latest fashion trends, which I always used to hear that France was like 3 years ahead of the United States in terms of fashion. I don't know if it's still the same or if that was never a true like statistic, but I still believe it to this day that they're always like a step ahead of us here in the US. The third point is language. The French obviously have one of the most beautiful languages in the world, and they're very, very proud of it there. There are about 200 or more million people that speak French. And so studying abroad in France is a great opportunity to practice your French, both inside and outside of the classroom. If you've never taken French before, that's totally okay. All of our programs are open and available to students who have never taken French. But it is a good opportunity to take, even beginning French while you're out there if you have the ability in your degree plan. Okay. Oh, I love that we have like information about our program here and then also like information about how many bakeries they have. So love that. So in with ISA France, we have two different program locations. So we have Paris and Lille. In Paris, the city, as most of you know, it's known for being very sophisticated, having a lot of prestige, internationally, and a lot of global influence. Studying abroad there is a really good opportunity to benefit from living in a very diverse and cosmopolitan European city, where you can really they have opportunities for anything you might enjoy, um, whether it's, just sitting under a cafe if you're really into cafe or coffee culture, going to a museum to see Monets and Renoirs, all of that good stuff. So very, very cool there. And we used three different words to describe each of our host locations. So if we had to pick like three adjectives to describe Paris, it would be elegant, timeless, and inspiring, right? A lot of artists and visionaries have been inspired through their time in Paris. We have two different host universities there. We have the Institut Catholique de Paris, which is primarily a French language and culture program. And then we have the American Business School Paris, which is really well known for business courses like marketing, luxury retail, things like that. We have programs for semester, summer, and J term in Paris. And then, yeah, primary subject areas are, like I mentioned, French language, business, really like any area of business, whether it's like finance, economics, marketing, things like that. And then liberal arts courses are kind of our primary options there. And then we have another program in Lille, which is in the north of France. It's a very vibrant city in the Nord-Pas-de-Calais region of France. It kind of is a mix of like French, Flemish, and Belgian culture. So kind of an interesting like just juxtaposition with with Paris. While in Paris, like most people drink wine, in just going a little bit north, like an hour north, people drink a lot of beer there, and have that kind of Belgian culture, which is kind of fun. It used to be kind of an industrial hub and city, but now it's really known for art, really good markets and like flea markets. They have like a international flea market there. And for its university life, actually. So there are quite a few different like universities, higher ed institutions in Lille. And the three adjectives that we use to describe Lille are charming, youthful, and dynamic, because it is quite a like collegiate, college-centric environment. It definitely has like a pretty um, youthful vibe to it, but a little bit more chill and relaxed. You know, it's not a small city by any means, but not as like huge and bustling as Paris. So kind of a good in between there. And then the host university we offer there is the Université Catholique de Lille. It's quite a big institution out there, quite well known. And big important thing to know there is that it is a summer program only. So we don't have like semester programs there. So only a summer opportunity at this time. And you can take courses in French language, business, liberal arts, and even science through the program in Lille there. And with so many different partner universities, no matter what you're hoping to study, we have a number of options to meet your course needs. And we also have student accommodation options that are really high quality. So depending on the location you're in, you can choose to live with either a host family, university housing, or apartments while you're abroad. And I'm seeing a question in the chat. Is there an option to take multiple courses to earn at least 4 credits? Good question there. For the J term, it is, that's a really good question for the J term. Can you take more than 3 credits? Um, Typically, it's just 3 credits. The host university has allowed students in the past to take 2 intensive courses during the term. That is a lot, you know, while you're already, you know, in a new environment, you're trying to get out and explore and travel and things like that. It can be a little bit challenging to take 2 intensive courses at one time. But they have offered that opportunity in the past at the American Business School Paris. And it is for an extra cost, right? Because you're essentially doubling the academics that you take there. But that's my answer for now. And definitely, yeah, if you have more questions there, we can connect you with Shelly and our program advisor team. All right. So now we can kind of meet the team. Who would you be working with our France programs? Um, so we have a team based here in beautiful Austin, Texas, where it's finally under 100 degrees, like for the first time in like 3 months, which is great. So you'll have a team here working with you on everything you need pre-departure. So helping with course registration, helping you, you know, determine what kind of housing you want and get you placed into the correct housing type, answering any like cultural logistic questions, helping you with airport pickup and drop off, stuff like that. And probably one of the most challenging ones is helping you with the visa process. So while we can't actually like do the visa with you, like go on your visa appointment with you, we have really knowledgeable experts on the French visa process that are available to you for any questions and to kind of guide you along the way if you're on a semester or academic year program that requires the visa, since it's over 90 days. For summer, J term, things like that, they're under 90 days, so currently don't need a visa or anything like that, but something our team is available for. And then we do have quite a large team based out in Paris, in our office, which is actually right across from Notre Dame, in a really great location in the 5th arrondissement. It includes our, you know, resident director, Anna Maria, and then you can see Leah, Gabrielle, and Delphine. There are full-time staff members that are in that Paris office to help. They organize cultural activities, excursions, help with health and safety support, do orientations. They have a computer lab if needed while you're there. So really good support system that's really critical, you know, when you're in a different country. All right. So speaking about funding, if you're an out-of-state student, study abroad can actually be a little bit cheaper than studying in your home institution. So something that a lot of students think, financially study abroad is not a possibility for them. It can be. Do you already use financial aid? If you do, definitely check with your financial aid office to see if you can apply that aid to a study abroad program. The same thing really goes with scholarships as well. If you have, home university scholarships that are available to you, definitely can't hurt to ask your home university if those scholarships will apply to your study abroad. We at ISA also have scholarships that you can find on our website. Definitely encourage you to apply to those. And we award over $1 million in scholarships every year, scholarships and grants. And then finally, have you looked at your budget? So pre-departure planning really can start as soon as now. You can kind of think forward to the future of your study abroad and even your living expenses for when you're abroad, and can consider already starting the budgeting process, the saving process. Do you have a part-time job that you're able to save some extra funds for study abroad? Save any gifts that you get for Christmas, which is coming up, which is kind of crazy to think about. You can already start kind of thinking about the finances as soon as now. Right. So what's next if you haven't already applied to the program of your choice in France? I would strongly encourage you to set up an advising appointment. Our team can actually help you narrow down the different program options that we have to help you find the program that fits your needs. Shelly will go ahead and drop a link right in the chat if you would like to book an appointment with our team here in the US to kind of help you refine your program choices and things like that. All right, so now to the good stuff. Um, if you are starting out or you're already enrolled in a program, we think it can be really helpful to talk to somebody who's already been in your shoes. They've already done the study abroad process. We're really happy to connect you with our panelists today from our alumni network to help answer any questions that you might have. And I have a few kind of questions to ask them to get the ball rolling. Um, and we're happy to connect you with somebody that shares a similar identity to you if you want to ask them about their personal experience or advice. All right, so with all of that said, let's go ahead and meet our alumni who are on the call with us today. So if you've been like holding on to a question for somebody who's been there, done that before, now would be the time to throw it into the chat, and we can help answer those questions as I start with getting to know them and some of our kind of questions we've already come up with. So let's go ahead and get into introductions. Could you go ahead and share your name, your home university, and where you studied abroad? And we'll start with Elizabeth here.
Hi everyone, my name is Elizabeth, but I go by Liz. My home university is the University of New Hampshire here in Durham, New Hampshire. And I studied abroad in Paris, France at the American Business School.
Excellent. Welcome, Liz. All right, and then now we have Emma.
Hi guys, so my name's Emma Broquier. I studied abroad in Paris last summer. I was there for the summer term, and my home university is Texas A&M University here in College Station, Texas.
Very cool. And then finally we have Alexis on the call.
Hi, I'm Alexis. My home university is Arizona State in Tempe, and I also studied abroad in Paris during the spring with Liz, so at the American Business School.
Oh, awesome. blast from the past then, or like worlds colliding, right? It's like I feel like you kind of forget that people exist out of your like little study abroad bubble that you had. It's like, wait, you actually exist in the United States, and in like real life, by real life. Um, all right. So we'll go ahead and kick it off with our first question. And we'll start with Emma. Why did you choose Paris as your study abroad location?
So I chose Paris because my undergraduate degree was actually in French, so that was my major. So I definitely was looking for a program that would allow me to like get fully immersed in the language. So ISA's like French immersion program in the summer was perfect for me. It allowed me to get like all my transfer credits that I needed to help me fulfill like my study abroad requirement. And it was just an amazing setup. Like I was at the Catholic Institute and it was just amazing. All the teachers there were so awesome. And I definitely like my French, it was crazy how much I improved in just like 3 months. So definitely was really happy I chose Paris and the Catho to study there.
Perfect. Yeah, and a lot of people think you can't like use your French and really immerse yourself in French when you go to Paris, because a lot of people speak English out there. But yeah, if you're tenacious and you just try to use it, and even if people speak back to you in English, you stick to the French, you can definitely get a long way for sure. All right. So next, Alexis, same question for you.
So I've been studying French since elementary school. That was just kind of like my elementary school second language. Most of the time it's Spanish, but for some reason mine was French. So I kind of did like the immersion program in elementary school, and then I just stuck with it throughout middle school and high school, and now it's my minor. And so I think since like middle school, I've just wanted to study abroad, and I always told myself, okay, second semester, sophomore year, I'm doing it. And so I did. And yeah, and obviously my French accelerated so much. Yeah, if you're like willing to put yourself out there, it can definitely be like humbling at times for sure. But I just think that's like traveling in general. So yeah, I definitely got a lot of experience talking to people in French, and I feel like just my French as a whole has improved. So
Perfect. Yeah, I think it definitely shows you make a lot of mistakes. You can look foolish sometimes when you're trying to speak, but like, yeah, just sticking with it. The French really appreciate it. And you found them to be pretty nice, right? I feel like things have changed from the like former uh like sentiment Americans used to have toward the French. They can be pretty sweet, right? For the most part.
yeah, I would say so.
Cool. And then Liz, last one.
Yeah, so I basically have a very similar story to Alexis. I didn't start in elementary school though. I started studying French in around seventh grade, so in middle school. And once I got to high school, I started to really love the language and the culture. And I always just had this like drive that I was going to study abroad. And then when I got to college, it ended up falling on my second semester of sophomore year, same as you. So I kind of never really questioned where to go. It was always just I'm gonna go to Paris and then it's gonna like because that's like the city in France that I knew of. And then I ended up going and I loved it. But yeah, I basically kind of just had my heart set on Paris. And then it also aligned with my academic like goals and then also personal goals. So it just ended up working out perfectly. But I always wanted to go since like very little that I knew I wanted to study abroad in Paris.
Amazing. Yeah, just making those dreams come true, making it happen. So important. Perfect. So for our next question, we'll kind of sprinkle in some different questions for each of you. So even after you decide where you want to study abroad, studying abroad can still be a little bit daunting. So for Emma, what was your biggest concern leading up to the program?
I think definitely my biggest concern was like making friends because I can be pretty quiet sometimes. So I was like, oh gosh, like I'm going to be thrust into this new country and this program and I'm not going to know anybody and I'm like going to be all alone all summer. And I was just terrified of that. And I was so wrong to be scared of that. I like you just form these bonds with like everybody there that you know, you kind of have to become friends in a way, you know, like you have to rely on each other like when you're going on the metro or when you're trying to figure out how to get to class or something. So you're kind of just like thrust into these situations where you have to like rely on each other and like talk to people and stuff like that. So I definitely ended up making so many friends, and we would like go out to dinners together. A few of us like had birthdays over the summer, so we would celebrate their birthdays and stuff. So I definitely think that that was my biggest fear, was like making friends, but it turned out to be like such an awesome, you really just have to trust the process, because it was just such an awesome experience to like get to know people. And I always tell everybody like I feel super popular when I came back home, because like, you know, on the Snap map you can see everybody. Now I have like people all over the United States, and it's like so cool. So definitely, if you're worried about friendships, like don't worry about that, because that was just one of my worries, and I loved it.
Awesome. Yeah, something about like everybody already being so far out of their comfort zone that it's just like, okay, let's do this. We're here. Let's all be best friends. Um, cool. All right. So we do know that leaving home can be a little bit challenging. So Liz, do you have any advice for students who are on the fence about going abroad?
So leaving home for me was definitely very challenging. I had a significant other back at home, and he was staying at my hometown, and I was leaving. So obviously that is really, really difficult to deal with. And that combined with like worrying about the fact that you're living in another city where you don't necessarily speak the language perfect, and it's a big city, it's kind of like New York and all this crime and everything. So I personally was like freaking out, was super anxious and like overthinking everything, because that is how I am. And so for students like looking to study abroad and who are on the fence, I would recommend just like think of the opportunities that you'll gain from this experience. Like I went into it knowing that I was going to travel the world and see all these places that I would never have the chance to see. Like I would never be able to spend 4 months of my life abroad traveling Europe with the funds I have right now. So it was a really awesome chance to just see the world. So as much as it's super scary to kind of venture outside of your comfort zone, it is so, so, so worth it, because you get to see the entire world, make a bunch of lifelong friends, and then learn a little bit along the way.
Yeah, very cool. Having to like change that mindset of like, I can do this. And like, yeah, you don't want to have FOMO, like missing out on this like one time that you have to like study abroad in undergrad and um yeah, take that amount of time away from your like everyday life and like responsibilities and stuff. Very cool. Um, all right. So finally for this question, Alexis, knowing what you know now, what kinds of questions would you ask yourself if you were torn about going abroad?
That is a great question, honestly. I think, hmm, I'd probably just ask myself like how my living situation was, because I did a host family, and luckily I was able to live with my friends, so we kind of like studied abroad together, but I was definitely a little nervous about living with the host family because I wasn't sure if they were going to know any English. Good thing I already knew French, but like still just to like rely on English can be a little nice. Um and I also like wasn't sure if they would have like a million kids. I'm not a big kid fan. And then I don't know, I just like wasn't sure how the setup was gonna go. And I was just like really, really nervous. But now like I'm super close with my host family. I had like an amazing time. They had like an older kid, so like now we're friends with him and stuff. And it just like worked out really well. So I think like that was the one question I would probably ask myself now, like if I could go back, if that makes sense. Yeah, that's probably what I'd ask myself.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, doing a host family is like even taking yourself further out of your comfort zone, right? Because it's like, oh my gosh, I have to like adapt to a whole different family, uh, and kind of have a spotlight on me a little bit, but definitely can be really rewarding. So glad that you enjoyed it. All right, so we did touch on this, our next question a little bit, but I know it is a big kind of talking point for students who are interested in studying abroad but a little bit nervous about it. So we're going to talk a little bit more about making friends. So Emma, what was it like making friends in your classes when you were abroad?
So I definitely wasn't prepared for all of my classes to be like it was like people from all around the world. It wasn't just ISA students, it wasn't just Americans. We had people in my classes from South Korea, from Thailand, from a few from the UK, some people from Spain, just all over. And that was just such a great experience to be able to connect with these people who have, such different experiences than me. And I really, really enjoyed that. And it was funny because most of the time French was our only common language. So if they didn't know English and I didn't know, if they were from Spain, I don't know Spanish. So we would have to rely on our French to kind of make friends, and you kind of struggle together and you figure it out. You kind of play a game of like charades and stuff. But eventually, you form these bonds with like these people in your classes. And it was crazy just to think about how now I have friends like all over the world because I, got to be in class with them and stuff. So definitely I would say like just put yourself out there, be willing to talk to people because they want to talk to you. They want to practice their French, of course. And at the end of the day, like everybody's just there to learn and they want to make a new friend too. So
Yeah, very cool. Um, Love that. And Alexis, what about you? What kind of ways did you work to make friends in your classes?
So most of my classes were like mostly filled with study abroad students. I think it just like kind of
Mhm.
depended on like which classes you took. So I noticed that like more of my higher level classes had like more study abroad students because I think most of our study abroad students were like juniors and we also had some seniors in there too. But then like one of my classes had mostly like full-time students at ABS, so like people who like actually live in France. And so I think just like not being nervous to like go up to people again, like when most of my classes were like filled with Americans, it was a lot easier to obviously communicate and we would have group projects and stuff like that. So I was able to meet like people outside of our program as well, which was really nice. But then like in my class where it was mostly full-time American business school students, that was a little bit more nerve-wracking because typically they would be like speaking French, or sometimes they'd be speaking Arabic too. Um, so it was just nerve-wracking, but knowing that like they knew English because our classes were in English was very helpful. So I think I just kind of had to like put myself out there and be like, hey, like even just ask them like, oh, what question are we on? Or oh, like what are we doing again? And then that just kind of like puts
Opening
yourself
it
out
up.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. And like interesting to see kind of the differences between the Institut Catholique de Paris with Emma and then the ABS with Alexis, kind of the different makeup of the students and English versus French versus, yeah, international students. So kind of cool there. Um, all right, and then Liz, a little bit different question for you here, but could you tell us about some of the places that you went while you were abroad and how it helped you to make friends while you were there?
So when I was abroad, I traveled every single weekend. I think I went to around 8 countries. So I went to Switzerland a few times, Italy many times, went to Greece a couple times. Like I just was all around the world. It was super, super cool. But what I did a lot was I would travel solo to those locations and then meet people there. So I had some friends from my home university that were in like Lisbon or Florence or Paris or whatnot, and like we would meet in a completely different area. So I had some of my friends from Lisbon come meet me in Milan, and like it was super super cool because I was making those new friends in at ABS in Paris and like getting to know all these people from all over the world while also like strengthening my current bonds with my friends because we were able to travel the world together. Like that's such a cool experience. So yeah, I got to use like my travels. Like I was traveling solo too, so like I kind of became more independent and like I trusted myself to kind of like get to from point A to point B better than before. But it was really cool because I got to create like these lasting friendships with the people that I already had and develop new ones in Paris, people that could be from anywhere in the world that I had never known before.
Yeah, very cool. Getting to like see your friends in a totally different context and like, yeah, um, maintain those relationships and those like ties to home that you could be missing a little bit. Like, kind of nice to get like a little infusion of that while you're abroad for so long. Perfect. Okay, so for our next set of questions, we're going to kind of switch gears and talk about academics in a little bit more detail. Um, so campus life and coursework can look pretty different from what we're used to in the US. So Emma, you studied abroad at the Institut Catholique, and I'm sure the grading scale was pretty different from your home university, and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit more about that and even more just about your classes abroad while you were abroad and how they're different from what you're used to?
Yeah, absolutely. So the classes at the Institut Catholique were French focused, so French language classes. And I guess the first surprising thing to me and to maybe some of my friends were that the professors, some of them did not speak English at all. So our only method of communication was in French. So you kind of get your attitudes adjusted a little bit by saying, okay, not everybody speaks English, and that's, it's up to you as a student to like adapt to that. And then the other big shock was, so in French classes they use a grading scale of 0 to 20. So the first time I received my paper back and I got a 16, I almost started crying. And then one of my friends was like, no, no, like that's good. Like that's an A or whatever. So I was like, oh, okay. So just be aware that if you go and you take French classes, they will most likely be graded on the French grading scale, which is 0 to 20. You can easily like look up like, the scale converter or whatever to see what you got. But yeah, that was definitely a shock. But those were probably the two biggest things. Other than that, the classes were really fun. We got to do a lot of like group projects, and all of it was done in class. I rarely had homework, which was great because that means I
Nice.
could go explore after school. But yeah, I loved the classes. So
Great. Yeah, we love like little homework so you can, yeah, enjoy your time while you're there. And yeah, I think I've heard, I forget what exactly it is, but I've heard like anywhere from 18 to 20 is only reserved for like God in France. Like nobody's
yeah,
getting an 18 or
the
higher.
professor, she was like 20, like it just, I don't give 20s like at all. I was like, oh, okay, okay, good to know.
Probably good. Like it creates a culture of like, there's no way to be perfect, so don't even try. Like, uh, don't like kill yourself trying to be perfect. Um, Great. Okay, Alexis, what was your experience like at the ABSP? And were your classes in Paris similar to the ones at your home university or pretty different? I know it has the word American in the title, so I don't know if that translates all the way.
I would say like the only things that were like kind of similar, like in the American aspect, was the grading scale. So it was still 0 to 100%, and then A, B, C, D, F. And then my classes were in English. So I feel like that was kind of all that was like similar, and we had like a syllabus and
Yeah.
everything still. But so I think most colleges, I know like some of them kind of do something similar, but like most of them do like a block schedule sort of. Like you'd have your classes like twice a week for like maybe like an hour and a half, maybe like 3 times a week for like an hour. And so at ABS, the classes were once a week for 3 hours. That was like crazy to me because I was like, how am I supposed to sit in this class for 3 hours? There's no way. I can barely focus for an hour and a half. There was like a little break in between, which kind of like split up the class a little bit, but it was definitely an adjustment because I'm used to having the class twice a week and I can kind of remember the information throughout like the week to the next class, but then this time's only once a week. So it was really like up to me to like keep up with the info and like make sure I get my homework done. I can't like keep it until the last second because then I'll have to like remember everything we went over. Everything we went over the last class. So that was really interesting. kind of like a high school vibe. It was weird, but it was
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah, and kudos for you for doing that because I feel like our attention spans are like really short nowadays. Like I'm thinking like I've got like 30 seconds on TikTok and then I'm swiping. So to do like 3 hours is pretty good. Uh, cool. All right. So we do have a few students in our audience who haven't applied to their study abroad program yet. So Liz, could you give us an idea of like how far in advance you planned for your program or applied for it? And what advice would you give about that?
So I started probably in the summer before. I was so excited, so I wanted to get on top of it as soon as possible. But the way it works here at my home university, University of New Hampshire, is you have to apply through my college and then through ISA. So I did the initial program through my college or like applied through that by the end of September, and that was done. And then kind of from there, I had not really the slightest clue where I was supposed to go. So I eventually figured it out. It was ISA, and then after I got through that, it was like after you apply, and then if you get in, you get a whole big list of everything that you have to do, which is really daunting, but you get it done. So I would say like don't wait to apply because do trying to do the application process and school can be really difficult. It's not like the hardest thing, but it's obviously easier if you start getting on top of it earlier rather than later. And then you have like you can balance it better and like you don't have to be super stressed out at the last minute trying to get all these visas and everything. So I would just recommend one, applying as fast as possible, and also talking to your advisors because I had so many issues with my classes transferring over for credit to the point where when the application was due, I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to do it. So it was really stressful and it just did not have to be that stressful. So just starting earlier, talking to your advisors, asking them any questions you may have, or contacting anyone here and asking them questions about the program is definitely a better and safer way to do it. And it saves you a lot of stress. So that was definitely one of the big things I would recommend.
Yeah, really good advice. My favorite thing is when a student asks a bunch of questions about the visa process for France, like 6 months in advance, and I have to respond back to them and be like, you can't start it yet, but maybe in 3 months we'll talk to you. But I love that because I'm like, they care, they're on top of it, there's no way they're gonna like miss the deadline, or any of that. So really good to be doing things in advance to so you're less stressed, like you said, like when when you're like coming up against a deadline. Perfect. All right. And then Emma, it looks like you applied like 6 months before your program started. So knowing what you know now about the application process, what advice do you have for students who are looking to apply?
Yeah, so kind of similar to Liz, like the earlier you start, the better
Mhm.
like for you and for the program. It'll just make your life a lot easier. I know for my university, they required like a ton of paperwork because I was seeking to do like almost a full semester's worth of transfer credits. So keep in mind that your university may also have paperwork for you to do. I think that's something a lot of people forget. Like they're just like, oh, I applied on ISA and everything. And then they forget like sometimes your home university like needs to know that you're going. They have a whole like study abroad office. So make sure you get into that. And I would just say, yeah, just be organized. Like there's so many things they're gonna ask for you. Like they'll ask for your passport, they'll ask for your all these documents, and you're gonna have to get signatures and stuff. So the more organized and the earlier you can be, the better. But also like don't stress because it's gonna get done and it will be okay.
Yeah, very good. We definitely have like every semester like one or two students who like only apply to us and not to their home university, and then it's like like we need to get them going, or like vice versa, one or the other. So very good advice from both of you there. um Perfect. Okay, skipping along just a little bit. So I have a question for everybody in the group. And Emma, will actually start with you again. So, knowing what you know now, just about studying abroad in general, what advice would you give yourself, your former self, before going abroad?
So I would probably tell former me just to relax. I was kind of super excited, but also nervous. And I had like a whole bunch of checklists and stuff like that. And it's definitely good to be organized. But at the end of the day, like you really can't expect what is going to happen. Like so many things are going to happen on your experience that you just never would have thought would happen, or you're going to feel so many things. So just kind of be prepared to like go with the flow, and just like let the experience like happen to you. And I would also say like be prepared, like it will be very hard to come back. I thought like after 3 months I would be missing some Tex-Mex and I would want to be coming back home. But honestly, it was really hard to leave. And I still like to this day, I'm like, when can I go back? Like, let me look at my finances, all these things. So be prepared that it might be harder to come back than you think. And if you come back and you're a little sad or have like a little, week where you're just like, I don't want to do anything, that's okay. It's okay to miss your study abroad. That just means that you had a good time. So yeah, so definitely be prepared for that.
Yeah, really good advice. Not a lot of people talk about reverse culture shock, but it's definitely like a real thing. So, very good. Alexis, same question about, yeah, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
Kind of piggybacking off of Emma, I think coming back was like it was way more difficult than I thought, but also like at the same time easier because I kind of like prepared myself. So I did the spring semester and then I also stayed throughout the summer. So I've like been back for like a
Mm,
month now.
oh my
So
gosh,
not very long time. So I'm
so
still kind of
fresh.
like adjusting. And yeah, reverse culture shock is definitely a thing. And also like I think realizing that like friends were like living still, even though you were like doing your own thing. Um, that was like kind of like, whoa, like life was still passing like back here, even though like I was like, oh my gosh, out here like literally having like a whole like episode. Like I don't even know like how to explain it. But yeah, but I think like some advice I would give myself is probably just with packing. I feel like I packed some like really like random things that I didn't need to pack. Um I think like packing extra products that you don't know if they have over there is definitely a good idea. Like I have curly hair, so I packed like extra curly hair products type thing. But when it comes to like clothes and shoes, I would pack like two basic pairs of shoes because I only pretty much wore two the whole time, even though I packed more. And then just like, I don't know, really, really basic things like jeans with like no rips because like sometimes it gets cold. Um, and just like basic shirts because I feel like I ended up just wearing like the same few things because all my other stuff was just like a lot. And I was like, I just want to be like wear like basic things. So yeah.
Yeah, and that definitely is like kind of what the French do too, right? They don't have like super like loud, like they're usually kind of understated and all of that. So, yes, very good. And then Liz, same question. What advice would you give your former self?
So going into it, I think I had like this exact picture of what my study abroad experience would be because I had seen other people going previous years and I was like, oh, I want it to be exactly like they had it because they're posting on Instagram and it looks picture perfect and beautiful. And I'm like, that's exactly what my abroad experience is going to be. And I wish that I went into it not having like an expectation of what it was going to be and more just being like open to what was going to happen because my experience was completely different than how I had planned it to be, but it was so worth it and it was so fun. So it was just like I very different and like in a way it was kind of disappointing when I went in and like it wasn't what I had hoped it would be, but it was also like super cool because I was still having a great time. So just go in with like an open mind, go with the flow, like it's gonna be great no matter what. There's really no way to have a miserable time. It's so fun. You meet so many people, you travel, like there's really nothing better. So just go in. I would tell myself to just go in and have an open mind and just like expect the unexpected. Like it was just awesome. So just be excited to have fun.
Perfect. Yeah, openness and adaptability are like two of the most important things, I think, when you're going abroad. And yeah, a lot of people expect like, oh, I'm studying abroad in Paris. I'm going to be like Emily in Paris and wear these like fancy outfits and never take the disgusting metro and all of that stuff. And yeah, it's like a real big city, so it definitely can be like different from what you're thinking in your head, but like you said, like ends up being even more beautiful, because it's like real. Anyway. Um, all right, last question for everybody. And we'll start with you, Liz, again. So just kind of, yeah, just unmiking again. Um, but students always talk about life-changing experiences they had abroad. What is a life-changing moment that you will never forget about?
This is a long story, but I'll shorten it up. So, spring break, I went to Italy with one of my close friends from the United States. So she flew up to Italy and we met in, I think it was Rome, and then we went to Florence. And I had a train booked from Florence to Paris towards the tail end of our trip. And so, I think it was a day before my train was supposed to leave, I got an email from the train company saying that it had been canceled. So I was freaking out because I was traveling solo and I had no idea kind of like what to do because my parents were asleep. It was 4 a.m. in the United States. It's not going to wake them up and say, like, I need help. And I'm alone in Italy. Like, I can't just kind of just sit there and cry. So I ended up booking a bunch of different things. I ended up getting home safely and it was fine. I overreacted, like, it was totally okay. But that was a life-changing moment because I realized the own power that I had in myself. Like, I could do if I was really in a situation like that one, that's a very scary situation, I couldn't get myself out of it, no, like just with my own experience. And kind of growing up from being like, under your parents' watch, being like a kid, but you're like in college, so you're an adult, but you're still kind of a kid, to kind of being abroad and then having to solve your own problems like completely on your own. It's really cool. And it's awesome to realize like that you have that power and that independence. So I gained a lot of confidence from that and realized that I'm just a really strong woman and I can do what I want. So that was just a really life-changing moment.
Amazing. Yeah, that's what we love to hear. Like, you can do it. You're strong, adaptable, problem solving, all of that stuff. So, yeah, amazing. And yeah, like former you probably would have like, yeah, just you cry in a corner and like whatever. So, great. Um, all right. Alexis, how about you?
So mine's kind of similar to Liz. So I think this happened actually in like June or July, I can't remember, but one of my friends was doing a summer study abroad in Sevilla, and so we planned on meeting in Portugal in Porto. So of course that's like solo travel and then you meet someone and all was fine like the whole trip it was amazing. And then she left like in the morning and I was planning on leaving in the afternoon. So I just like hung out in Porto for the day. And then I got to the airport early and there was two flights going to Paris Orly and I was looking at the wrong one the whole time. And so when I got to my gate, they're like, "Oh, this gate like this door closed like a while ago." And I was like, "What?" And I was like, "Is there any other ones today?" They're like, "You're gonna have to go like back out of like to the front of the airport." So I'd have to basically re-go through security. So when I like went up to the woman who was working and she was like, "The next flight to Paris Orly is tomorrow." And I was like, "Okay, great. That's great." I was like freaking out. Um Good thing my parents were awake. So I called them crying and they thought like I was dying or something because you don't want to answer your phone to your child crying in a different country. Um but obviously all was fine. I rebooked my flight, got a hotel for the night, and then I got an extra day in Porto, which was actually kind of nice. Um so yeah, I think that was just like one of those moments where I'm like, just I like freaked out in the moment, but now I know I'm like, okay, just go up to the desk, rebook your flight, get a hotel, like you're fine, like it'll be fine. This happens all the time to people. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just do what you can do. You can't have it the way you anticipated in your mind, but what can I do? How can I make the most of it? Yeah, very cool. All right, and then rounding it out, Emma, same question for you. What's a life-changing moment that you had abroad?
So I kind of have two. So my first one was definitely similar to Liz and Alexis. It was actually on the flight over there. Like everyone was asleep and it was like 3 a.m. in the US and I just couldn't sleep because I was so excited. And I was like super worried. But I was like, it was the first time I realized like, oh my gosh, like I'm landing, I'm all alone. And it just was kind of that same feeling of like, empowerment, independency, like really awesome feeling. So that was really awesome just to like think I was like, wow, I'm a fully functioning adult, like going on this trip. So that was crazy. And then my second one was actually shortly after the program. So I actually ended up staying in France for about a month after my program ended. And my significant other met me and he actually proposed. So we got engaged in Paris. So very special to me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I feel like that's like everybody's dream,
It
either that
was,
or like meeting somebody while you're in Paris, right?
yes, it was definitely a dream, but definitely surprising.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, ladies, all of you for joining us today. Really appreciate your time and experiences and expertise. So, really amazing getting to know you and having you on the call today.